All right, welcome to the last official meeting of Circle V2. JP's taking notes, and I'm going to share the GitHub screen if I can find it and not share my calendar like I usually do. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go around and do our updates. Last time there was a little bit of confusion where we did our updates and showed this board at the same time. The intent of this is that as a circle, the primary work that we do should be reflected on this prioritized problem board. So we keep it up to help steer the conversation to the issues that are here, but you don't have to limit your updates to what's here. But it is here to help us focus on the ones that are up and either in process or being processed or talked about. So let's go in the same order as the agenda. So we'll start with Harris and then we'll move to Tevo for your updates.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So definitely have had a lot of work going on in the background. One of the things I've been heavily focused on is trying to get a set of open APIs available for the community. There's some work being done there as it relates to governance specifically. So that's sort of a lot of the activity that I've been doing in the background. I'm certainly, definitely sad for the kind of the outcome of what happened in town hall yesterday. So I'm definitely processing some of that. I'm trying to also support some of the CA discussion in the background. There is some background dialogue going on with researchers and others in terms of that. So that's sort of ongoing. There is work that I still need to take on in terms of enhancing more details about this concept of the Catalyst parameters pilot. So that is something that I will be kind of working on as I kind of proceed forward in more detail, and then share that with the circle that's upcoming. We have had some discussion related to what we want to see in the next circle. So I will be kind of the main representative for IOG in Circle V3. I was sort of appointed that role, so I'll continue in that capacity in the next version. So I'm hoping we can continue to further progress. Certainly was trying to get the word out to try to get more voices, more people that would want to jump into the circle, and hence sort of the advertisement of sorts yesterday to try to bring in additional people, additional representation into the circle. I think there's opportunities if we, as we extend this to a 6-month term, to have more of a duration. And I think from IOG's perspective, our objective is to sort of bootstrap as much governance as we can to kind of get things going quickly. And that's some of the intention. I think, we're not trying to make, wholesale massive decisions without input, but we want to kind of get enough started, enough, content going so that we can actually start progressing and making progress. So we're certainly eager to try to see progress being made, try to help and enhance some of the decision-making processes and bring that to the community to help make key decisions. And, a lot of the work that I'm doing will be in support of that, to try to make that transition, to do it in a safe way that is not under attack, that we're making good judgment and doing it in a safe manner to ensure that voices are heard, that we also are able to get decisions out there in the world. And so this is some of the work that I'm doing. Not necessarily blocked by anything specific at this time, but that's an update from my side.
All right, thanks, Harris. Tevo. updates from the Toolmakers and
Before we
Maintainers?
go to Tevo, I have a question for Harris on the CA background work. Would it be possible for you to CC myself, Tevo, and Nadia Hopkins on those meetings? We would like to participate in those discussions of the, what's going to be implemented in Fund 8 for the improvements to the CA process. Is that possible?
Yeah, I have not been in any additional outside meetings per se. I think that you've done a very good job of
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're
I'm just suggesting that there was a research document that came out, which I think is preliminary, but it may be helpful in terms of supporting and furthering improving the CA process, which is.
And I do have that document. Okay.
Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, fantastic. That the rationale behind CAs, is that the document?
Well, I'll check. Thank you for saying the title. Maybe not that one.
Yeah. So anyway, it is a known identified issue, and IOG's research is taking some steps to try to support that and improve it. Cool.
Thanks, Harris. So Tevo, Toolmakers and Maintainers.
I will start from one of the tasks from the prototyping section, which is not yet highlighted because it's not added as a toolmaker, but it's related to there is a lack of onboarding and instruction system and structures for Project Catalyst. Related to that, there has been a lot of community discussion on pretty much the same topics what Harris brought up, like how to improve Fund 8. Also run together with Kenric Nelson and collaborate on that note. There is an extensive Miro board and YouTube videos if people are interested. On the same topic, but just a slightly different, now goes to the toolmakers on raw problems, where to like how to track and visualize the participation, and also related to on an idea of how to improve the CA processes and VCA processes, and where should be the limits, and how do we manage such a huge influx of people and ability they have to go along with the process. And then the final thing, which is also a funded proposal, Stephen wrote how to nurture a listening culture in Catalyst. From that side, I'm also a bit of different perspective, where we trying to pilot a nurturing listener group who is able to moderate and also talk to and give a safety net to new people who are not really happy with the conversations what they might get conflicted in. On upcoming activity will definitely come through towards the listener group. I put more focus on there. Hopefully, like Kenric said, we are getting more looped in with what IOG and the Catalyst team decides on the priorities. So I would like to bring that information whenever we get back to the community, so we can digest and perhaps already contribute and help with more detailing or even guidance so we don't have more insight for the community. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do a lot of more looking into challenge settings and proposals what are now being voted on. And no blockers for me. Oh yeah, and of course, related to visualizing, if today is possible, I would like to share the research what started from basically the idea of when the first meeting started, like collecting insight of user journeys.
Thanks, Tevo. Raymond, you're up next with the SPOs.
Helps to turn on the mic, doesn't it?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask for something actually. I have quite a few things I need to put up on this board, and so I think what I would like to do is actually work with the next XPO to get them on the board so they see how to do that, and they immediately, in part of their overlap experience, are already doing it through what I've been sensing. So I've been gathering and taking notes, and I'm ready to create issues. I've been thinking a lot about Stephen and working with him and anybody else who wants to help me a little bit and get things on the board and help the next XPO know how to do it. And I think in summary, I feel like a satellite floating around the world of SPOs with like solar panels. And I'm just collecting and absorbing them. And they're so diverse and so different, and different languages, different peoples, different priorities. What I did see happen that I can say, and I'm actually very happy about it, is Catalyst is a conversation in the community. It's a big conversation in the community now, and there's tension around it, but that's why it's a big conversation, because people are seeing that Catalyst actually is something that is tied to our future governance experience with this community. Whether it ends up becoming the top of that or a lead-in, that remains to be seen. But what I am seeing is that people care to complain. They care to create tension. They care enough to think that they can do better, even though they're just opening up their mouth and not saying anything really useful. They're still trying to get into conversation, right? So that is what I got. The SPOs are doing it. This particular fund has a lot of great proposals in it. SPOs are engaged. I did make it a point to share with them that CAs are paid positions, and there's some work being done to make sure that they can't choose their proposals and that we can't invite corruption and things like that. So basically, more trust. I think there was a lot of I don't know, and I don't, IOG this and trust centralize that. And I think now they're like, okay, there's a process for the community to be involved. If we don't like something, they're listening. And I think that really came through a lot with Stephen, active listening, supportive listening. I think if you guys can build a culture around that and people feel inclusive in that way, and you make that API so people don't have to have idea scale accounts, that's going to open up the door for a lot of people. So that's my grand overview. I'll definitely put that into bite-sized issues, get it up on the GitHub with the new SPO and some help.
All right.
I'm quite happy to help with that, Raymond.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Raymond.
No blockers.
Blockers. Yeah, the blockers are just, this ecosystem is growing so fast. It's exploding so fast, and I've been here for so long now in terms of the time interval of growth that I see. So there's a part of me that's like, I have to have a lot of spinning plates, right? Because I don't want to get left out of anything. And then it's, oh, and you can eat too much pie, and you can have too much food at Thanksgiving. You can get so stuffed you fall asleep. So there's this sort of kind of like balance of how much can I take on responsibly and how much is just too much. How much bandwidth do I have? I was talking to another SPO that I wanted to nominate for the next XPO, and he's like, he's perfect for the job, but he has no bandwidth. And I'm like, we need to get someone here who has got the bandwidth, more time, and has more experience in proposal writing and in the community of the Catalyst ecosystem. I think that would be a good wise pick. So that's what I'm going to be nominating and going for and putting out there. So yeah, that's my reflection to you guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Raymond. Matthias, you're up next, and then Kenric.
Right. So I was talking with and listening to community members. There were also with CF some succession and transition talks, and how the Cardano Foundation can shift its operation within Catalyst and the Circle. And next, there is going to be more preparation for the Fund 8 joint proposal between the Ambassadors Guild and Catalyst School. So we are not going to be in a time crunch writing that proposal last minute. No blockers.
Kenric and then Stephen.
Yes, great. So I've been focused on the improvements to the CA process, which are described in 2 items under, let's see, where on the board are they? Give me a second here. They're towards the end of the board, the picked up and prototyping section. So the first one here with the reputation system, and the way we've been doing it, and I want to give a big thanks to both Tevo and then Nadia Hopkins, who've been working with me on coordinating these meetings. So I've held after town hall meetings every other week, and then Tevo has been hosting some meetings on this topic as well during the Saturday swarm sessions. And then we've also been meeting with the IOG community to make sure that the community's input is being handed over to IOG for implementation. So on that, we had a good discussion with Philip Lazo with regard to the reward system. And we've given him input about the lottery not really working well, and we don't feel that that's necessary. And then also a need to redesign the bonus so that it's not tied to a proposal winning, but is rather tied to the assessor matching their rating with what the voters decide. And we think that would be a better criteria, so that if you have given a negative rating on a proposal and the voters agree with you, that maybe is what also worthy of a bonus. And then we had a good meeting yesterday with regard to what should be the requirements for being a CA and being a VCA. I won't go into the detail with that right now, but I put a detailed summary in, I forget which one it is, but in one of those 2 items there. And we'll be taking that forward to the IOG team and trying to match up. I know that this week they're going to kind of make decisions about what's feasible and what are the stretch goals for Fund 8. So we wanted to do kind of a similar community exercise and see how well it matches. So that's my task for this week, is to work with IOG to kind of compare notes and work on the actual implementation. And then as far as blockers, one is sort of, maybe Harris can clarify, who is the point of contact and the lead on the Fund 8 changes to the process?
I can be a point of contact too. There's a number of people behind it, for sure. But
all right, fine. And I think fine. Then I think you've covered it. That we just want to make sure we're in the loop and part of those discussions. And then I would emphasize, from again, listening to the community, that while 2021 was kind of the launch and grow and see how far we can go with Catalyst, and we've achieved a lot. I feel like certainly over the next couple of months, and maybe even over the next year, it's really crucial to be focused on quality. I think the quality of all of these processes has to be ramped up, and that has to be the focus. There needs to be requirements about what's really a proposal, and if it doesn't meet those requirements, it should be filtered out earlier in the process. That's what we're trying to do with the CA process, is what's a quality review, and how do we early in the process filter out ones that aren't quality assessments. And then I know the audit team is doing that as well with regard to having more input about the execution of the project. So I feel like that's a big potential blocker if we don't pay attention to it going forward. And that's my summary.
All right, thanks, Kenric. Stephen, and then Allison. And you might be muted, Stephen.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just look at the problems. There's the funding proposals. Okay, almost non-existent collaborative layer, and really, I mean, I feel like I haven't done enough on this. Really, I mean, all I've really done is well, I submitted a Fund 7 proposal to provide support for my successor, and produced a frequently asked questions material there. And if that's funded, I'm quite happy to work with whoever replaces me to support more the funded proposals in terms of the information that can go to them. Same with the no systems track and visualize trust and participation. On a new problem which was raised, how to nurture a listening culture in Catalyst, I'd like to propose to this circle that all circle representatives own this problem, basically so that going forward we can be committed to accommodate a range of voices and to be aligned with Catalyst strategic goals, to be safe from adversarial capture and to be accountable. I've done some work in, well, actually, it's been quite inspiring, some work in the community, starting from a Saturday's forum session. The community's just gone off and done what Tevo was referred to earlier as the community listeners. A lot of these people feel quite under attack by other people in the community. And so we're trying to accommodate that. My initiatives on this have been relentlessly attacked over the past 2 weeks by trolls on social media, particularly a podcast last week. That's continued on, but that's not just going to discourage me from wanting to nurture a listening culture in Catalyst. As for myself, I feel that I haven't really represented the funded proposals as best as I could, partially because a lot of my attention was put onto the listening culture issue and also the development of the community governance oversight. And that's what I'm going to, when I leave Circle, I'm going to focus on the community governance oversight, which will have, in part, have a brief to oversee the, there's not a problem on the board on this, but hopefully there will be at some time, the relationship between Catalyst Circle and the Technical Council. And I look forward to working with Circle in the future on that problem.
Thanks, Stephen. Allison.
Yeah, so maybe I might start with my blockers, which is that I also have not figured out how to use the board. So issues that I've been collecting are not up there. So thank you, Stephen, for offering training. I'll take you up on that and perhaps can help transition this activity to my successor. So issues that I've been working on, I've heard a number of times from a number of different places the need for a reputation system for CAs and for better auditing of proposals. So I know that Kenric and Stephen have both of those well covered, so I don't think there's anything to add there. Totally ironically, and long before anything having to do with yesterday's town hall, I have heard from another number of sources that there are problems with the town hall format, just that it could use revisiting to think about what's being conveyed and who the audience is, and perhaps do a refresh in terms of the format. So I thought I would put that on there as the beginning of an issue, just to examine the town hall format globally. The other thing that's come up is that I think is worth putting on the board is to think about the role of the general voter rep. I think that it probably could use some analysis and deeper thought. I think it's a tough community to try to represent. And one idea I had is maybe splitting it geographically, just starting to think about potential solutions, but I think it's worth capturing that as an issue. Aside from that, yeah, I think that covers the majority of things that I've been working on. I was really sorry to miss the election conversation on Monday, because I think that's a very important topic that obviously we all need to address sooner rather than later. So I'm hoping to participate in that, especially as it relates to the general voter role, particularly given the dispersed nature of that community of constituents, for lack of a better word. Yeah, and I think along those lines, I have this as an agenda item for later, but I think it's worth talking about extending the term to 6 months and possibly exploring some sort of overlapping term, overlapping terms. Yeah, but that's it for me.
Nari, you're muted.
Oops, thank you. Thanks, Allison, and thanks everybody for your updates. We'll move in next to the agenda proper. Let me bring that up. Share it. So we have a number of topics today. We have the silenced with Matthias, operational budget for Circle with Kenric, 6-month term for Circle members from Allison, should Circle members publish pick lists from Allison, and then Tevo's Catalyst user journey research. Are there any topics that people would like to have considered or removed or put in a different order? Stephen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I would like the issue of last night's platforming of Rick McCracken discussed.
I think that's the sub-bullet of the
Matthias. Yeah.
Matthias.
Okay.
Are you okay with that as the container for that?
Because I have it as a separate item for, is that possible, Matthias? Is that okay?
Yeah, I was just suggesting the order to be changed so that it can lead in. Yeah,
Okay.
It might be a better transition because we were talking about that, and then a little bit more process, right? Budget, and then. So my suggestion was to go into the community reactions. Just a suggestion.
Okay, fine, that's fine.
Okay, Allison, you have your hand up.
I realize the election is not an item. Do we need to have that as an item, or is that being covered in the meeting tomorrow?
I had the same question. I think we probably should spend a little bit of time talking about that. And I don't know what time the meeting is tomorrow. So if someone could share that.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. We should probably have election stuff in here. Is it okay to, since that's a pressing topic, to put that after Matthias's topic and before Kenric's budget?
I would agree.
Fine by me.
General notes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Raymond, you have your hand up next.
Yeah, a couple. One would be for us to look at for us as a circle to do everything we can to make sure that we have direct representation from Cardano Foundation. Nothing against Matthias. I just want to see Cardano Foundation itself hired and staffed and employed and paid by Cardano Foundation to sit in the circle. That's one item that I would like to put forth. The other one is a bigger one. I don't know if it fits into today or not, but to start the ball rolling on making sure that we make it so that Catalyst advisors cannot pick their own proposals, basically, and suggest a system to replace that process, whatever it takes. So those are my the two things that I want to bring forward to this circle today.
So I didn't capture that second one. I missed the point. What was it, Raymond?
So the first one is to insist that future involvement of Cardano Foundation is itself Cardano Foundation sitting in the circle represented by Cardano Foundation. That's one. The second one is, and I know we've talked about Emergo in the past. I don't know where that is, so that might maybe come up in there as well. The second one is to put forward the proposition that we start to look at a solution to CA's choosing proposals and make the system more random, but still also be able to have quality assessments being done, right? Somehow be able to bring quality assessments and random into the situation to make it more fair. And I think that would bolster confidence in the system in the long run for governance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that has definitely been captured in our CA discussions. I have gotten feedback that it may not be possible for Fund 8, but it is, I agree, very high priority, and I'll continue to push for that. So unless someone else has more input, I've got you there on that one for sure. That to me is extremely high priority.
Yeah, that's all I have for now.
Okay. For that last one, Raymond, are you okay if that's a conversation between you and Kenric for now? I don't know if we'll be able to get to that, and it may not.
Which one?
Yeah, and we were
CA.
planning to chat anyways next week, so why don't we do it offline, Ray? I'll get more input from you, Ray.
Sounds good.
Okay. Everybody else happy with the agenda as it's currently laid out? If so, then let's start with Matthias and the silenced.
All right. So first of all, I'm incredibly privileged to have been part of the circle. As a white cisgender male living in a convenient enough location to attend these meetings and having acceptable English skills, I did not have to jump through hoops to demonstrate that I could do this work. I'm German, and unlike many other nation states, Germany's school system is actually pretty good in conveying what atrocities our ancestors committed. I probably should also mention that I served in the Division for Special Operations in the military, and I was deployed to former Yugoslavia at the beginning of the century. I also like to ask tough questions, something that made academia enjoyable for me. And it seems that controversy seems to be rewarded in our ecosystems these days. So bear with me while I set the stage with a poem. We are like people at a wayside station, waiting between trains or between planes. We attend the cinema, consult our watches. We sit down and stretch our legs, stare at the skylight. We buy a paper and read it without comprehending. Noticing the whistles blowing, the crowds coming and going, we listen for the porter to call sonorously the panel of destinations. Decorously, the clock ticks. We await the roar of the transport. This is In the Shadow of Great Times by Helen Goldbaum, September 1939. It is with endless disappointment that I observed the founding entities of Cardano not only ignore, but amplify already deafening voices at the expense of disadvantaged community members in the public sphere. But hey, we should be grateful for having an open conversation and for bringing more awareness to Catalyst, for having, what else could it be? The uneducated opinions of white men who express that the other don't matter. You know how this made me feel and what I was thinking about? Meaning I know this to be true in my heart and my head. That is my reality. Me as a person, born and raised in Germany. In a way, it's like thanking Adolf Hitler for becoming aware of anti-Semitism. Didn't like what I just said? Well, just shut up and sit with that uncomfortable feeling. Whether you think that feeling is justified or not, you cannot say anything to me. I won't listen. Right now, you don't have a voice. I can talk shit about you all day. I can talk shit all day. You are silenced. You don't matter. How many of you experience this feeling daily? I will also now shut up, but not be quiet. Because unlike the virus that we brought into our community, I am fully aware of the harm I just caused. I propose to just be still for a minute and recenter in good old Anglo-centric fashion. I will set a timer, 1 minute. I hope that you will forgive me for this. My intention was not to disrespect anyone, but that's what this intentions sometimes do. I would still like to ask you to take a hard look at what has happened over the last weeks, months, and maybe even longer. Did we come here to make the same mistakes as other humans before us? Only this time, we are only fucking banked with magic internet money. Some of you have been doing this longer than I have, but I'll say it anyway. Check your damn privilege. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Matthias. I'll open the floor up. If you want to comment, contribute, feel free to raise your hands and jump in.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Matthias. I mean, I just have to say, and I really didn't want to talk about these sort of things at Town Hall today because I thought we'd got over this. I raised a problem at the last meeting because that was related to an individual coming to me, and that I framed the problem as listening, because Kenric is right. We shouldn't individualize these things. We should try to address all of these in general terms and hopefully constructive terms, and everything. The response of IG has been supportive in one respect, but in another respect quite confusing, because maybe it's a lack of an awareness of the background, because all through this process, everyone involved in this has been relentlessly attacked and trolled by individuals and forced off Telegram, ridiculed on Twitter. And that's very funny, maybe, for people involved, but it's actually shutting people down. And so, yeah, even if you disagree with someone, again, it's about the loudness of people's voices, and different spaces where people can go to be heard and to discover that. So the initiatives that I did I went to Eastern Town Hall in the morning and listened to African women's voices, and they said that they also experienced this kind of ridicule and And then in the evening to swarm sessions where we discussed the experience of that was a specific individual ridiculed that in a mock poll. So I suppose we find very funny on the internet. Then we come to yesterday. Well, actually last town hall, when someone who did a podcast was platformed, but none of it did a kind of mea culpa, but none of the people he did a mea culpa about were platformed. Okay, well, that bewildered a lot of people. Then yesterday, there was kind of well, this is what the community, large parts of the community are feeding back to me today, which have been and last night, is that there was a unilateral and arbitrary decision by IOG to platform a social influencers voting choices, including downvotes at a town hall. So, and the view is amongst most people I've been speaking to is that this is undermined trust in IOG, because how does the community know if and when another arbitrary decision is coming? So, and that sounds a lot like centralization to people. So it's confused people, it's disorientated people. It's put in doubt the voting process as well, because people feel that now a social media mob is motivated to vote and downvote in a certain way, which again is upset, and people feel betrayed. And I've heard reactions from IOG say this is an extreme opinion. If you think this is an extreme opinion, then I'm really concerned about you, frankly. You know, so what are you thinking, IOG, frankly? You know, and I've had lots of people say that they want to leave Cardano because of this, but we are still actually had meetings today to push back against this and to move and to, you know, this is the true value of Cardano, is its wonderful people in the community who are so resilient in different ways. We're all different and disagree, and are able even to turn things like this into an exercise in how to construct mechanisms where we can deal with things like this, which is important, given that we have to sustain ourselves, and there'll be more of things like this along the line. And, you know, we just have to mature and address that. So sorry for going a bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Raymond, your hand up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to, thank you, Matthias, for trusting this circle, this container, with what I would call your fire truths, right? Where your pain is, where your truth is. That's the only way we're going to learn, is if we can listen to that and not take it personally. You're carrying a lot of pain, not only from your lifetime, but from lifetimes that you are a part of. And I want you to know, from me at least, that I don't hold you there. I cast no judgment or projection or shame on you. You're a free man in my eyes, and I honor you for speaking your truth here. And I hope that Cardano can build a community where that truth can be held, because there's a lot more of it that needs to be spoken.
Thanks, Raymond. Harris.
So I definitely appreciate the open sharing. The internet is such a crazy place. I was sort of here at the dawn of the internet, and it's opened so many doors to the world, and it's given access to so many different people from all walks, and it's amazing to see this experience within Cardano, to see truly a global community, and there are differences of opinions, and but we do need a safe place for people to conduct and have discourse. And I think the intention is to have open discourse, to allow voices in every position to be heard. And I don't know if there is a best way to do that. And I think the intention is that people should not bully other people, right? We have guidelines to hopefully prevent that, and maybe there are more measures that can be done. We intend to promote the ability to have that open dialogue, that people do feel safe, and it's not something that we're trying to promote in any way, shape, or form. I think the intention that we had yesterday was to share a specific opinion. Unfortunately, that came together rapidly, and unfortunately, we didn't create that space for a different opinion, which is our mistake. And we should have had multiple opinions voiced. So there's certainly, we're taking it to heart that there was definitely things that we need to do with this platform of Town Hall. And there is some process in terms of inviting folks to join. It certainly was not the intent to show the platform in that way, where there was a one-sided opinion. Our intent was not that we're endorsing the opinions. The intent was that we were sharing an example of a person's opinion. And again, we should have had multiple opinions represented, and it's our fault that we didn't. So we are accountable for that. And we certainly will do more in terms of measuring and trying to strike a balance across who is represented, so that we are reaching everywhere and having, the quieter voices heard and given a platform. And but promoting in public a discourse that where we can have tough decisions, so we can have dialogue to really pave the way for the future of governance here. And I definitely see that we can get there. And my hope is that we, as mostly positive people within this ecosystem, can find a way to collaborate together in the best way. And our intention is to support positive collaboration as we move forward. So just some thoughts on that from me.
Thanks, Harris. Allison?
Yeah, thank you, Harris, for that. And thank you, Matthias, for having such courage to speak such powerful and heartfelt words. I really admire you for that bravery. Just a couple of quick thoughts. I heard somebody say that it was an extreme reaction. I just want to share my perspective that people reached out to me as well. I think there was a widespread emotional response from many parts of the community yesterday. I just really wanted to emphasize, I don't think it was a one-off or a particular person or group. I think a lot of people in the community were touched. And one of the things that's been really powerful about the circle for me is hearing different perspectives. Actually, from the Cardano experience, through Cardano, I have been exposed to people from different parts of the world, people with radically different political views, life experiences, outlooks, that have caused me to completely reevaluate my view of something or how I understand something and my view of myself and my own behavior. And I can see how, this is not about the particulars of the situation yesterday, but for anyone who might have been surprised at the emotional reaction or not expected it or not understand it, I think it's because for many people, there's just a completely different experience, and that image hit people with a particular life experience very powerfully. But I can understand how that may not have been anticipated or expected by somebody with a different life experience. And so I want to commend everyone for expressing their experience of that situation, so that those who didn't expect it and didn't see it and didn't anticipate it could get a bit of an understanding of how it was experienced by others. I hope that's not too vague, but I think that this is an amazing opportunity for growth. And I want to again thank everyone who's been brave enough to put their opinion out on all sides.
Thanks for that, Allison. Stephen.
I just want to stress, because this can sound like maybe people have an emotional reaction. There were some quite hard-nosed, rational reactions to this that felt that this was a poor governance decision and decentralization, particularly from the Latin American community. And to expand and develop Cardano, we need to expand outwards into new communities, particularly East Asia, Eastern Town Hall, Latin America. And what Allison was saying, this sounded completely different to those communities. Like rest of the world equals miscellaneous. Do you know what that sounds like? And the sheer dismissal of people is just flabbergasting, frankly. And so it makes people question people's capability, and trust as well. So this is quite people coming to me today and yesterday expressing very hard thinking reasons about this, not emotional ones. Just want to stress that as well.
Allison, do you have your hand up again, or is it still up?
Sorry, no.
All right. Any other contributions to this conversation? I really appreciate Matthias bringing it up. It brings a lot of courage, and I really appreciate you speaking from the heart there. I think this is an important conversation, and I think it will continue, and I appreciate everyone's contributions. I just want to make sure we have enough space to close it up. So if anybody has anything else, please raise your hands. Otherwise, we can.
I just want to express really high appreciation for Matthias and Stephen for working on such a difficult issue. It's of critical importance. It's really problematic. And I definitely plan to participate in the initiative they put together.
All right. Then thanks everybody for that conversation. Let's change topics a little bit and move into the CCv3 election conversation.
Yeah, so could I ask just to start off with a question, because I've been out of the loop, and again, I apologize, I missed the meeting on Monday. Where are we in terms of the election? I know we've called for nominations, and I think we have a date set for February 12th. Is that right?
Yes.
And we also decided to do it serially rather than in breakout rooms, so that everyone that attends can vote on all the elections.
That was sort of the discussion, Kenric, and after bringing that into some dialogue internally at IOG, that there are some potential security concerns with that in bringing it to a public forum. So someone could invite all their friends and they could vote on their specific platform specifically. So having separation actually, you know, is a security measure.
I see. Okay.
Matthias?
I'm not clear how that is a security issue because the current system allows for that as well, right? Especially if it's targeted. So for example, let's say, you know, Allison is going to run for the general ADA holders again, and she's going to bring all her friends, right? All her friends going to show up. First of all, seems pretty legitimate to mobilize voters, right? And I'm not sure how that is different versus, hey, you know, I bring all the voters to Allison, like all Allison's friends show up, and I also actually might vote for other people that they did not have connections with, but they, you know, listen to what is being presented, and it's like make a decision right then and there, which also is a little bit problematic. But I don't understand where the issue lays.
Yeah, so the idea of each of the seats is to be representative of one of these groups, right? And so we understand that there's several people that are in multiple groups, which is fair, and we do encourage everyone. Please, you know, build your platform, bring your friends. That's great, but what this allows is a bit more compartmentalization where you know, someone that brings 20 people can't just suddenly vote for their favorite people in one space. By compartmentalizing, it allows that they would have to make a decision and divide, which would mean they would have to bring even more people to cause an impact to the vote. So that's the general nature of the feedback that I got. I didn't, you know, necessarily make that call, but it was done that way, I think, intentionally the first time. So just the assumption that we would, you know, that was what we discussed, Kenric, you know, and
Yeah, and I didn't even propose that, but now that you're talking it through, I'm kind of seeing your point, because each community has different levels of representation. So if one community, for instance, was able to bring more people to the meeting, and then that community ended up dominating not just their own election, but all of the elections.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a challenge in terms of getting a good cross-section of the community.
Yeah.
And so maybe the way I'd say it is like diversity, what I'm hearing you saying is diversity in how we do the elections will help bring forward a diverse selection of circle members.
Yeah, that's the intent as I understand it.
I was going to raise another issue if I could, and that is,
Allison, you had a point on that same topic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to belabor this point because I think we're short on time, but I am really not following how it's a security issue to run the votes in serial instead of in parallel. I'm really not following that. I get that. I think it's a different issue to talk about community representation, but I don't understand the security.
I think I see it. If I can try to answer it, I may not get this right, Harris, if you want to fill in, but just as an example, if one community had sort of 10 people in attendance and another community had 100 people in attendance, right? Then the community with 100 people are going to decide all the elections. Whereas if you split it up, then the 10 people decide their representative and the 100 people decide their representative. So
yeah, I see that
is challenging.
I see that, except that who says that the 100 people that showed up because somebody invited them have any less right to influence one of the other elections? I mean, if I ask 100 people to come because they're general voters, but they show up and they also have strong thoughts about being
Well,
funded
think about it.
proposers, why shouldn't they be allowed to vote?
Yeah, I think this is a challenging question that we'll have to answer going forward. But if you're going to have if you're representing a community, for instance, this is about, well, I'll try to make an analogy, right? I live in Massachusetts. I don't vote for the Vermont senator, right? And so even though we're a global community, we're still trying to have representation by different functions within our community. So you kind of have to choose which, so the process of choosing which of those functions is most important to you is maybe a healthy process to ensure diversity in the selection process.
And I can appreciate that as an argument that a representative is representing a particular community. But I come back to the point that I don't understand how it's a security issue.
Mhm.
And I think that actually it's part of a broader topic that needs to be discussed, as we go along, circle representation, because unlike, you can't be a resident of Vermont and Massachusetts, but you can be a CA, a proposer, a toolmaker, an SPO, and hold ADA, and work at IOG. You probably could do all of those things. So I think there's kind of a tension there in how the circle is organized. And as we start to debate the criteria for adding new roles, I think it's a helpful thing to think about. And I think we've got to do something quickly here, and getting it done it's not going to be perfect, but let's move forward with what we have. I just, throw that out there for future consideration.
Okay, Tevo, you had your hand up.
Maybe I complicate with these things, but I want to voice an optional solution where instead of we come together in a specific day and do the vote, we run an registration and have a technical website or a specific link where they come to the registration, we see each other. We can even appoint people. We do have a lot of people we can trust. We're like, oh, okay, hello, Allison, this is your NFT or this is your registration link. And you can use your vote to decide upon it in that time frame in the future. And we share that registration in After Down Hall, in Latam Down Hall, in Easter Down Hall, in Swarm Session, in Gimbal Labs. And we probably have in climate change, all of these communities, what we kind of talked about before, which were neglected, we trust them, and we know that they are not thinking in unknown people. And even what I mean by unknown is that a face, well, like a name without the face, because that would be too complex to like that would be a security problem. But yeah, I think this, because I feel like we're not having enough representation with Catalyst 1.1 and Catalyst 1.2, and this would allow slightly open up to a larger audience and really push us towards having the control of NFT, what can vote for a representative.
So I'm just going to put a caveat that Tevo, you're going to have to go into the notes and clarify your point. I had a little difficulty capturing what you were saying there. So maybe I'll just, when you get the agenda after, just make whatever adjustments to that section.
Link me so I don't have to find it.
So I do think we do need a better solution long term, and I think in future funds we should have it as a vote item that would end up as a challenge, and then would end up as a regular vote that would be on chain, and that's the ideal solution. We have this sort of issue where we can't introduce a last minute challenge, and we don't want to, and so we need to wait, and so we can do that in the next round. But in the meantime, are there other improvements to the process that we can make now? So the intention in town hall was to open it up so we have more potential representatives, and we want everyone to show up for what was previously deemed Governance Day, and I reused that term, and I'm hoping that's still the right term. The admin team had set that all up, and I was, you know, using the similar kind of language. So did we get a bump in additional representatives that would show? Like, how many folks do we have on the list? Do we know?
I'm sorry, can I interrupt for just a sec? I have a emergency brewing at my front door right now and I need to step away for a little bit. JP, can you take over the moderation until I can get back?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Good luck.
Yes, we are still calling it Governance Day, just to correct on that as the admin team. So just to confirm that, but keep going.
Okay, so do we have 5 people now, or do we have 100
Yeah,
people?
so I don't have the exact list in front of me, and Peter's looking at that, but I wouldn't imagine it's, you know, more than double. Let's say it's double, that'd be 6 people from what we had yesterday. So, and I think that's maybe hopeful for right now. We need to do better marketing to get people to be inclined to want to join.
So,
Great.
yeah,
Clarity, sorry, for clarity, are we just saying that we're staying with the parallels system then? Is that what's so we are, well, I find this a bit confused by this, but I kind of, so we're not holding votes in serial then.
That was the recommendation that was given.
Okay, now in the original impetus to vote in serial was to prevent gaming in parallel. So where someone mobs an individual room in parallel, because their parallel is particularly vulnerable to that. So how is that resolved?
How would someone do something in parallel? I don't know. Like if you have 2 laptops and you're in 2 rooms, is that what you're?
What I mean is that a party's supporters turn up to one room in greater numbers than another room. So they become the people who sway that room.
Okay. Yeah. So the benefit is that it is very possible that a room could be swayed. Ideally, we have a room of, you know, SBO constituents that are in the SBO vote that would help sway that. And, you know, maybe there's a couple of folks that are candidates, and, you know, we want hundreds of people in there. We want that vote to be fair, so that the right person is elected, and that those 100 people in that room aren't also, you know, influencing the other roles.
But isn't the point of the serial one is that there would be a mix of special interests potentially with non-special interests? So there's a lesser likelihood of a mob of, say, CAs or something, or funded proposers, if it's mixed in altogether.
Yeah, we still can have a mix in each of the rooms. It's just we're asking people to decide, so that way, you know, a single group that would come in and try to disrupt the election wouldn't affect all positions. I think that's
Not clear to me.
let me ask a question that's related, I think, is that I think the election of circle members is very different than the election of proposals. And so even though we're planning to move to bringing the election of circle members into the circle process, it has to have a different process than the one we're using. And let me explain my thinking behind this. Within each challenge, you're selecting between 4 to 10 proposals that are going to get funded. So the ranking of so there is a ranking that takes place, and that ranking affects which proposals get funded. But in contrast with the circle members, you're only going to select one per category. And if you have frankly, more than 2 candidates, it's known that a process in which you just select one candidate is a very, very poor representation of the community's opinions about the candidates. So I think one of the things I'm wondering is if in this round, we can start by using a ranked choice voting system, which has some it's not perfect. There's no perfect voting system, but it has significant improvement in getting to real consensus and real opinions of the community, given multiple candidates. The other thing I'd say is that I think that, again, I think there is, partly because of what Matthias and Stephen had brought up, is that there's real vulnerability in these positions, you know? And so I think given the vulnerability that the circle members face, and this was going to be true under the Voltaire, even the representative voting possibly, is that there may be a need to have some kind of identity guarantee in the process of the voting. Like I know that privacy matters, but somehow it feels to me like they completely keeping it secret and then potentially moving to weighted votes really has some opportunities for corruption and some outcomes that we don't really want and maybe are going to have difficulty anticipating if we don't work hard on a process that's going to be truly consensus building. And I'll throw this out. I think ranked choice is something that people know. It's been well documented. It's been used, so people are comfortable with it. But I'll also say this, and then let someone else speak. Is that I noticed in exploring the quadratic voting, which also has some good features, that one of the things that's interesting about what they set up in that voting process, identity is required. You know, because you can game the system with a Sybil attack. There, in the tool that Gitcoin has created, they require a unique, or they supply a unique URL for every voter. You know, most voting systems, everyone goes to the same URL, but their system is unique in that every single registered voter gets a unique URL. And that feature might actually help with our security process. And so again, I'd encourage someone on the IRG team to look at the Gitcoin quadratic voting system. Because it might, even if we don't use quadratic voting, the way they've set it up has some unique security features.
Very good. So I just want to put a caveat that we have half an hour left. We have a ton of items left, and Tevo's was 30 minutes. And so we're definitely not going to be able to get to anything. Is there any action items or anything immediate that we can do for the election that we can take offline to work on? Allison, I do see your hand up, so maybe I'll let you have last comment before we go to hopefully being able to close it up and move on.
Yeah, so just quickly on the security issue. So as I understood it, the reason why people could only vote in one room for V2 is because of Kenric's point about identity. So the facilitators counted how many people were in each room to ensure that the votes didn't exceed the number of people in the room. So it was a kind of rough way to make sure people weren't voting multiple times. And if you had people jumping from room to room to room, the facilitators wouldn't have been able to count the votes. So that's why I'm confused. If you did it in serial, you could apply the same rough and ready control just as easily as you could in parallel. But I'll stop there, because all of these ideas are good and should be debated and discussed in a lot more detail. But I'm also very conscious of the fact that we've got to get something done. So let me ask this. I think is there a meeting tomorrow where we can continue talking about this? And if so, what time, and can I join?
Yes, I just sent out a meeting invite.
That was like magic.
And you should all have a meeting invite called CCv3 election process that I just sent out for the meeting tomorrow, which overlaps with the CC admin team meeting.
Oh, 6:30, you gotta be kidding me. Okay. Was I off mute for that? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so thank you. Because there's that meeting tomorrow, I think we're gonna skip on to the next one because we'll have to move on. There's so many things left. So let's go, Nori, I'm gonna turn it back to you, but let's go to the
Okay.
operational budget for
Yeah,
Right.
so
Ken
let me-
Reed says Nelson.
Yeah, so I know people are working on this, but I want to emphasize it again. We talked about it during our first meeting. And I understand that the administrative team has done some stalwart efforts with both getting a proposal in to fund the administrators and also to set up a stake pool operation to fund that. But I'm concerned that these are kind of temporary fixes for a much larger problem that we're headed for. And so my request, and to kind of keep this short, is to Harris, can IOG provide a real budget of how much IOG is spending right now on running Catalyst? Because what I see is about 10 people that are actively involved, that are salaried people, that are putting significant time into making the Catalyst system work. And I don't think anyone seems to have done the thinking about actually scaling up an operational budget for running Catalyst that is separate from the proposal process for funding initiatives. And to me, it's a train wreck coming down the road if that's not taken seriously.
Yeah, just to reflect back really quickly, you know, we do have planning involved in terms of, you know, ongoing maintenance and what is required. We do have some budget concern, you know, discussion that we've had. There is the longer term governance approach, which you know, has its own considerations, which is coming, and that those plans will be shared in the next, you know, coming weeks. And so that may enlighten sort of the future state of where we'll be, and that would have actually, you know, budgetary considerations and make sure that we do have funding. So that is something that is being planned. In the short term, though, we do want to make sure that we're covered, and ideally, as much as possible, Catalyst is covering itself.
Well, okay, that's helpful, Harris. And maybe one other thing I'd add to that is I'm not observing in this circle kind of the circle having some oversight or involvement with the Voltaire design. And I think that would also be valuable too. So there's a sense in which the community is involved in the Voltaire design rather than it just being imposed on the community.
There will be some element of bootstrapping for sure, but the plans will be shared shortly.
Right, okay, but I think you might want to consider shifting the language there as you go forward, right? If it's just sharing with the community what's been decided by IOG, then that's not the community building up a governance system. That's I think another issue to address.
Sure. No, that's fair. We do want community feedback and input for sure.
Mhm.
You have your hand up, Allison, for a comment here.
No, I don't know what, I know what my problem is. I've hid my own self view. And so now I can't see what any of my reactions are. So if they seem completely out of proportion to what's being said, that's why. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Kenric, for the topic. And if I may just, yeah, I've noticed that there is Catalyst budget set aside for CAs, for VCAs, for proposers and voters even. And to me, it would make sense if we have a governance body emerging that the Catalyst Circle itself shouldn't be chasing funds. It'd be like CAs having to propose a fund to fund CA's next fund. And that seems kind of counterproductive. And we spend a lot of time on these proposals, and I think we shouldn't be. It should just happen. And if the experiment needs to change, it changes, but we shouldn't be having to ask the community for money to run this every time. So alternatives to that would be really welcome.
I think that's critical, actually. It needs to be fixed soon.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that would solve a secondary concern, an issue that we have that's up on the board, disentangling Circle promoting proposals to fund the Circle from other work that we're doing.
Yes, right. That's right too.
Yeah, also, you know, the topic of funding the members of Circle, it also should be on the docket and in the budget to make sure that the folks on the Circle are rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
But great points. I'll definitely take an action to follow up on it.
All right. Allison, you have one for a 6-month term for Circle members next.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a separate point from the election, but I would just propose that we're at the point where the Circle V3 could have a 6-month term. I think that 3 months it's really hard. It's short. I feel like I'm just getting started and we're just, you know, building relationships and starting to work with each other. And yeah.
Tevo, you have a comment?
I would vote against that option because I feel like we are going through more members and you're not out of the game. You're still the member and will be advising the next person. And if we would want longer terms, I think it will also be a higher barrier on already a dwindling numbers of people who want to be a Catalyst Circle member. And if you feel like that you have a more impact on as a 6-month cadence, maybe we can introduce a system like you can represent yourself twice, and if people vote for you, you are just longer term. We too might have to think like you cannot be there forever, but yeah, that's basically what I would say.
Thanks, Tevo. Kenric?
You know what, I was essentially going to say what Tevo just said, so I'm going to take that back.
All right. Matthias?
Yeah, I also like Tevo's suggestions. So from CF side, which is interesting, they support 6 months, and because I share Allison's view that I'm just getting started, I know what to do, and I'll, if it makes sense, continue doing the work, especially with the proposal with the Ambassadors Guild and the Catalyst School. At the same time, it's not clear who CF is going to send. So Raymond, I can tell you right away because it's an agenda item. CF is not going to send an employee. They don't have the capacity at this point in time. Hold up, I'm speaking. And so I like Tevo's suggestion of if you feel like you just got a sense of it, run for a 2nd term. I personally like that because at the same time, we see it at the nominations. It is not very attractive right now to be a Circle member. And I'm worried people get burnt halfway through the 6-month term. So I personally, not CF position, I like Tevo's suggestion that could work.
Harris, then Stephen.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we're just kind of now getting well seated, and you know, so it was kind of recommended to try to work to extend it. Certainly open to some dialogue on how we might do it, but we wanted to put it out there so that we can get some real work done, because there are pilots we need to run, there are things we need to be effective, and the handover process at this point is something that would disrupt progression, even though there is overlap. And I love the fact that folks are wanting to continue to stay in and participate and help, which is beautiful. But you know, the next 6 months is going to be really important, and we do want to really drive a number of pilots, and that's why having that consistency right now is really important.
I basically concur with Harris. There's a lot of challenging things coming up in the next 6 months, which would be benefit from people being in position longer. And the experience here is that, again, the cadence felt like didn't really get going until about halfway through. Having said that, I do think there's an issue of the problem of rewarding people, because the more you get involved, the more time it takes. And also or maybe Tevo's point about how there's been a disincentive for other people in terms of it's 6 months. That's a big commitment to a lot of people. There may be a hybrid solution to this, where some roles are 6 months and some roles are 3 months, and or some people, if a person who runs for 6 months may have an option to stand down.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to my prior point that it's not just me personally getting going and then having to stand down. It's all of the loss in productivity with running an election, with changing roles, with forming new relationships. It's, you know, we're going to spend a lot of time in the coming weeks, as we should, thinking about the right way to run an election. And while it's good to iterate on that quickly, it's also a lot of time that we could be using for other things too. And so I also don't think 6 months in the general scheme of things is a very long period of time. Although I certainly know in crypto world, and with the pressures that have been on the circle, I hear that 6 months might be a barrier for people. I would concur with, I think it was Stephen's point, that perhaps we look at the way those roles are incentivized, and that might go a long way to encouraging people to run.
Tevo and Raymond.
Another point is Catalyst Circle for me is still an experiment, and we want as many voices as we can. When we do this transition, what you just said is an actually good thing, that we talk about how do we govern it, how do we vote each other, or how do we represent community. And this discussion should happen more than 6 months, or after 6 months cadence. And then this forces us to do that. The second thing is when we do this handover, we actually do a somewhat retrospective, if we take our position seriously. As we onboard a second person, we go over what we learn, and we usually, when you educate, you actually, or at least try to educate and bring somebody else up to date. It adds more value to both the economy and yourself. And like, to me, again, like we're not going anywhere. We're still trying to push the Catalyst forward. So, and I would rather see more faces in this governance, which is called distributed, and yeah.
Raymond and then Kenric.
Okay, so first, just a question: what is the current rule about running another term from within the circle? Do we have a rule we can exercise, or we extend ourselves, or does that need to be something that comes from a new vote and a new making of that rule that is more representative of what the community wants? Where are we with that right now?
Yeah, right now, there's no limitation. You can run again, as far as I know.
Okay, so you can run again. Okay. And as far as as far as the term goes, I'm in agreement with what I'm perceiving to be consensus here, which is that there are tasks for a circle like this that are better served by a circle that stays together for longer, because it takes longer to do it, and there's a productivity loss that happens at the transition boundaries, just like we see stress at the epoch boundaries on the blockchain. So it's similar, and I think it's a good idea to have those transitions and also kind of have outlook for what the next round of tasks are going to be for the circle, and look at whether 3 months is better or not for those, kind of round, I guess you can say. It's like an outlook. But that's my input on that from what I've heard from everybody.
And I'll concur with that too. I actually support the 6 month term because of those reasons. But the thing I want to interject is, given Matthias's remark, can we move that item forward and maybe talk about that next? Because I actually had that on my mind. I didn't raise it, but I think Ray brought a good question about the CF representation, and given Matthias's input into that, it would be nice to have some clarification on that issue. So if we could move that one forward, I think that would be helpful.
Sure, I try and clarify that. CF will not send an employee to the Catalyst Circle.
And why is that?
as I mentioned earlier, they don't have the capacity.
They don't have the capacity. And then you also said in the meeting earlier this week that there's, did I understand right that there's only 2 other?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but that meeting was private. So if you.
Well, how many Cardano ambassadors are there right now?
I do not know. But there are not a lot ambassadors that want to run, because ambassadors are not just working on or in Catalyst. There's a few ambassadors, including at least 2 here present, that are essentially Catalyst ambassadors, that are Cardano ambassadors focusing primarily on Catalyst. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it does. And maybe it's for a later date, but I guess the question arises as to what the Cardano Foundation's role going forward will be on Catalyst.
Yeah, the Cardano Foundation has their own thoughts on that. We, especially over the last week, in my stand-up, I was kind of alluding to that we, try to surface that more publicly, but it is for essentially the Circle V3 member, whoever that will be from the foundation to decide, probably in collaboration with other Circle members.
Yes, I certainly like the concept of having a direct person from CF, and as of right now, I guess, Matthias, there's no new appointed person at all. I intend to probably take the action to follow up with CF directly then.
I'm not sure if that's necessary, because Cardano Foundation has a seat at the Circle, so I'm not even sure how any other groups have any say in that. So it is the Cardano Foundation's decision who to send to the Circle. So I'm not sure. And I remember you were talking to me that you would, like to see me continue doing this work. But now you're saying you want to see somebody as an employee, someone direct at the Cardano Foundation to work on it, on the Circle. So I'm a little bit confused why that even matters. Because if you look at the historically version 1 of the Catalyst Circle, there was a direct representative of the Cardano Foundation, an employee. How did that turn out?
Yeah,
was it better? Was it better? I'm not sure.
We do want representation. We do need somebody to fill the seat. When do you expect to have somebody appointed?
I don't know. I'm not decision maker in that regards. We are trying to see who would be even willing to do this work. There are some people within the Ambassadors Guild that we think would be a great addition to the Circle V3, especially as, when it comes to representation. But they would just have to agree doing this work. It's not very pleasant, especially at a Cardano Foundation.
Understood. Okay.
All right, Raymond, and then we probably should move on to the next topic.
What is the next topic? Is it my topic, or what are we doing with that?
We're actually talking about your topic about the Catalyst Circle representative.
Just now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say something about it. So here's the thing. I think what we have to do with this is we have to pull back, actually, and go back into ego view and go, do we need the Cardano Foundation at the table? Do we need them to self-represent? Right? Where do the gears of IOG and the Cardano Foundation meet? I see them as teeth meshing when they work well, just like a clock. And so if we need those teeth to mesh, we have to have Cardano Foundation in the circle representing itself. That's just an overview, has nothing to do with with anything of what happened before. Obviously, whatever happened before was just a bad example. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just wasn't a good example of someone who's really committed to actually being on the circle. So I think the question for the circle is, do we need the Cardano Foundation at the table to make sure those gears are meshed? What does the Cardano Foundation do exactly for the community? Is there attention, and do we need them to be relevant in what we're doing? Right? If we think we do, they have to be here, because this is the beginning of governance. This is what the wheel that will get bigger and eventually will be spun by the community and held by the community. So I think it's going to be important that there's the right representation in that circle so that it's legitimate, so that people feel like that gear that has to mesh with that other gear is actually in place. Because otherwise, what the hell is the Cardano Foundation even doing for us now? Right? That we need that clarity. So that's what the bringing the issue was up about, is do we need it, and identify if we actually need it, and if we feel that we do, ask for it and push for it and find out why it's not there and make it so that it eventually is. Because we have to look at what does it need to be, not how does it work or how has it worked. What does it need to be for the vision to manifest, right? So what are the pieces that need to be in place? So that's my 100 cents on that.
All right. I'd welcome more conversation here, but we're not going to get to the other topics if we do so. So is everybody okay with that? And that's mostly Allison and Tevo, because you have topics that aren't going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine, but the Tevo is really the.
Yeah, I would like to at least share it, what I did, if not go into and like deeply into it.
I'd like to see Tevo's what Tevo has to present as well.
Okay, I'll just pose a question then on this topic. It doesn't have to be answered right now, but question for.
Sorry. If you just pose a question and you don't give anyone the option to respond, this is exactly the problem that we're talking about. So
okay, well,
if you can delay it into Slack, that would be great.
Of course, the answer could come later. But
maybe we can take this into Discord or the Slack channel.
Yep.
And have a conversation.
Yeah, I just want to let Raymond know
it.
I heard you and I'll convey the message.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Tevo, you have the floor for the next 5 minutes.
Let me get share screen. Link. Oh no, it's crashed for me. But do you see something and can you hear me?
no,
I hear you.
well, we
Hear
see
you, yes.
you're trying to share something, but it's just blank.
Well, unfortunately, my screen is froze totally and everything between my entire computer. If somebody else is able to
Let me
stop
see if I
sharing.
can get it open. Hold on a second.
You're sharing your Miro board, Tevo?
Okay.
Is that what you're looking to share, the Miro board?
Yes,
I
I
can
did.
share.
Okay, you got it,
I
Kenric?
did plan to.
Thank you.
I think this is it. You're seeing the way in. I heard about Project Catalyst. Is that what you're seeing?
I see it.
Oh no, you actually unfreezed my computer right now. That's amazing.
I see it as well. Yeah.
Okay. So how would you like me to go through this, Tevo?
Just click on my name on the top start. It's a yellow circle, and I will guide you.
Okay.
So basically, this is the main area where I brought the data in from the form and organized it into some clusters. The purple sticky notes are the analytic and the insight gathered from what we saw, and few people from community who reacted on this kind of visualization. The whole point was to see a journey for where the user is coming in, what they do, and what is their output. One big issue is that there wasn't too much responses, so the information is skewed, like we do have a situation in Catalyst often. But if we do look at the face value, there is one issue that would we say from onboarding is that most of the onboarding happens through IoT channels, either YouTube, Summit, their events, or applications. Another thing is when we go into like assumed functions and behavior, what people are expecting when once they enter the Catalyst, they are represented with the roles, circle members, community advisor, proposal writing, etc. And when I compare the sticky notes, I share that if you compare it with the incubating know-how, then we don't really match the role does not really match what we are able to do in this community and what expertise we bring. So that we like label into a label voter or a community advisor, but that there could be so much more roles and things we could do as a community and to get attractions from. Related to the know-how, since I'm already here, as a community, we got the strong know-how to how to put almost whatever we want. So I just want you to notice that this is great topics, what a lot of people are working on, what challenges and things they are like looking at it. So it's like stronger than any enterprise usually. So we just be aware of that. And that is just for these few responses to get that holistic view and so much touch points. So that was amazing. Thank you everybody for getting that feedback. Of course, one of the reasons why I wanted to do was to see that like a tooling of like an overview what basically people use on their daily lives. And the one biggest insight was that not many open source tools used. Many the Gitbook and GitHub who advocated, thanks to Stephen, strongly to the community, but so much like proprietary tools, Word documents, Google Sheet, Google Slides, Miros. If there is any developers looking at it, this is our bottleneck. If you are able to open source these kinds of tools, you will make a great leap to Cardano community. Of course, we offer a lot of services. You can look into that. Many are like aggregation services, what people are referring to. The official and community websites are not used for information aggregation. So again, something we are trying to push, and we see from proposals, and they do not yet get that attraction. So this is another reason why we need more of these community-driven challenges and proposals, and just to be aware of. And information flows through events and long-form videos, which is quite interesting to see. Like usually when you code these kinds of ideas, funds, like innovation funds or grant programs, they're mainly like through like educational video courses or a lot of text data and material and checkboxes. We're here, feels like community mostly gets these kinds of information through live events. They come to town halls and they expect more of these events to come to join and listen in. And finally, when we go to the output, there wasn't really too much analyzing I could do. It's just something was mentioned that we're missing a respecter, but I feel like it's just the amount of few people what was represented, the data influx that caused that kind of like misrepresentation. But whole point of that journey, like not whole point, but one of the aspects was once you go through this answering and really giving insight, why did you come here? What did you expect? What did you see to nurture you, to give us a good, what are you looking forward? And one insight from that is people are mainly looking for reference material. Since the time, I wouldn't go too much into it. I had the color codes and just quickly, I don't even actually want to say it quickly because that would be a labeling without an insight and that's gonna make it more complex. There would have been some questions we could have answered and just from my side, I will hope that people who check this Miro board are able to comment here or edit or contact me if you have some knowledge about how to gamify incentives or Catalyst governance, you know why we keep using idea scale, or you have your opinions so I can collect them and create another, basically a list of answers for people who are looking for them. Some people pointed out having technical issues. That looks good to Joe. Yep, and that's a quick overview.
Thank you, Tevo. Just to wrap things up, is there anything you want from the circle based on this? You mentioned feedback.
Yep, I would like to also get your feedback, what you see from this data and what could you do or what options you see, how to address these kinds of pain points, what community is missing. I think there are some could be actually even put on the GitHub for the upcoming circle members to work on, and definitely there are already some address, some pain points, so we just could like cross it and this discussion and just to look through. I mean, basically do what you can, do your best, but I'm not forcing anybody to.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. And we are at time for the meeting. Stephen, do you have something really quick you want to say?
Yeah, just very briefly, could you do an after town hall breakout room about this, Tevo?
Definitely. I will. I'm not sure about swarm session because maybe there is an opportunity to continue the CA and Catalyst process improvements if we get feedback, and would prefer to use that event for that. But if not, then like I do want to see that event happening, but not sure about the sequence or priority.
That's great.
Thank you, Tevo.
Thanks, Tevo.
So this brings us to the end of this meeting. We actually have one more meeting in the calendar, and I would ask if you are all interested in using that meeting to do a retrospective of your term so that we can gather a little bit of feedback on what went well, things that we could improve, and kind of turn the final meeting into kind of a learning opportunity so that we can continue to grow and pass that on to the next circle. So not to come with specific agendas or things, but just to do a retrospective and celebrate what we've done and move it on. Okay, it looks like there's broad consent for that. So we will meet in 2 weeks and the admin team will facilitate a retrospective of Catalyst Circle V2.
Awesome.
That's great.
So we can bring our own slideshows and music.
And drinks.
Yes. Definitely.
I want Tevo to make my slides.
Wonderful.
I don't want to do any kind of slides. I don't want to even do presentations. But if you need a Miro board, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And thanks to everybody for being a part of the circle and spending time here today as well. A lot of tough conversations, and I'm really happy that you're able to work together like you do. And we will reflect upon it all next week or in 2 weeks.
But we'll see you tomorrow for the election call.
Oh yeah. And if you didn't get the invite, let me know and I can resend it. But I added everybody on this meeting to that one.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm bringing the drinks for another evening meeting tomorrow night.
All right.
Hey guys.
Take
All
care.
right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right, guys. See you soon.